Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 6:30 p.m. Land use hearing. It's Monday, October 27th, 2025. As is our tradition, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand if you're able. Well, welcome, everyone. I'm Kristen Stevens, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. With me are my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally and Commissioner John Kafalis. Behind us from the Clerk and Recorder's Office, we have Deirdre O'Neill helping us with record keeping. Across the way, we have Christine Luckison from the County Attorney's Office. And now I'm going to turn things over to Rebecca Everett, our Community Development Director. She'll share some additional information and introduce some of the other people that are here with us this evening.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Rebecca Everett, Community Development Director. I'm joined up here at the staff table by Connor Sheldon from Engineering, Justin Curry from Planning, and Ryan Oswandel from Planning as well, who is helping with Zoom and other logistics tonight. We respectfully request that all members of the audience please silence their electronic devices. Please help yourself to a copy of the agenda and hearing procedure instructions, which are located on the wall just to the right of the hearing room entrance and are also posted online at larimer.org/BOCC/commissioners-meetings. Please wait to speak until recognized by the chair. Please maintain civility, refraining from any audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether positive or negative. Anyone who is disruptive during the hearing will be asked to leave. Please make all comments directly to the Board of County Commissioners from the podium, and we do have a portable microphone available if needed. Please state your name at the beginning of your comments and provide the spelling of your name if it's unique. And please speak directly into the microphone so that all the participants online may hear as well. The microphone on the podium can be repositioned to best capture your testimony. Questions may be asked during your testimony, but will not be answered until public comment is closed and rebuttal has begun. Upon request, we do have assisted listening devices available for the hearing impaired. And for those on Zoom, attendees will be muted until they're recognized by the chair at the appropriate time in the hearing. If an online attendee wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function on the Zoom control bar when we prompt that. If you're calling in on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If the Board of County Commissioners has a legal question during the hearing, they may elect to go into executive session with the county attorney. Executive sessions are private meetings where the board can get confidential legal advice. So rather than asking everyone in attendance to exit the hearing room, the board would relocate to a smaller private room if that occurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So now I'll go over our agenda. We only have one item this evening on our agenda. It is a public hearing discussion item, and that item is a new cell tower at 520 Isaac Lane. File number 23 WCF 0107. And in this case, the applicant requests special review approval for a new 150-foot, I believe 150-foot, self-support wireless facility in the O Open Zone District. And so for items on the discussion item, there'll be a presentation from staff, so Justin will be doing that. There'll be an opportunity for the applicant to make their case. We usually give 10 minutes. Then there's an opportunity for public comment. Each public commenter will be given 3 minutes. At any time, the commission can ask questions of the applicant or staff. Then we would enter into deliberations. After public comment, if there is public comment that is against the item, the applicant would have 5 minutes of rebuttal. Then commissioners can ask any final questions, and then we'll move into deliberations. So that's how the evening will go. And so let's move into our first agenda item, which I said is the new cell tower at 520 Isaac Lane. And so I will turn things over to Justin Curry from Planning, who will be doing the presentation.
No, it's on. Good evening, thank you. My name is Justin Kerr, and I'll be presenting on the application before us for the 520 Isaac Cell Tower Special Review. So a little background, so the location is at 520 Isaac Lane in Bellvue, Colorado. It's located on the northeast corner of Risk Canyon Road in Stove Prairie. This black box outlined right here is the property. Some site info, the zone is in the O open zoning district. The existing land use is a single family residential. Surrounding land uses are the same, as well as primarily vacant or open land and single family residential use, and it is not within an existing growth management area or GMA. A little background on the project, kind of how we got here and why we're here. So this item was originally scheduled for the February 26, 2024 Planning Commission hearing. While the item was being discussed, there was some debate or confusion on what the ultimate tower height would be. Although submittal and application documents were requesting 190-foot tall tower with a 5-foot lightning antenna or lightning rod. And then during the applicant presentation, different heights were mentioned by the applicant or the property owner, and there was some confusion on what the ultimate height needed to be for what they're what they were trying to provide. Ultimately, the item was tabled to a later hearing date so the applicant could decide, figure out, through a study or more work with their staff on what the ultimate tower height needed to be. Application was then scheduled for the August 21st, 2024 Planning Commission, and the applicant proposed a new tower height of 150 feet plus that 5-foot, antenna for the lightning rod. And then staff was informed that the reduction in height was due to a recently added fiber cable, I believe, on the property or adjacent to the property that would allow for that 40-foot reduction. Then discussing with the applicant today on just, getting ready for the hearing, hearing from the applicant today, we were informed that the applicant will be requesting the original tower height of 190 feet. And then if approved, the project will no longer be utilizing the nearby fiber cable. And there's, I'll have the applicant go into more detail on that and the reason behind that. So they'll be able to explain that a little bit better. So that's where we're at. So again, we're going back to the original application requests of the maximum height of 190 feet plus that 5-foot antenna for the lightning rod. The request, so a special review proposed for the 190-foot wireless communications tower in the open zoning district. Wireless communications facilities, which are not, this one in this case is not concealed, taller than 120 feet are allowed with special review approval. Requires a public hearing with the Planning Commission followed by the Board of County Commissioners. Tower is designed for co-location, and I believe that the original application said that it was designed to hold up to 4 cell carriers. The lease area will be just over 2,200 square feet. And then fencing and use of existing natural landscaping will be used around the lease area for screening. And then access will be taken off of Risk Canyon Road using an existing private access, Isaac Lane. And then the proposed tower will be located 455 feet and 918 feet from the nearest residential uses, where based on the height proposed, 380 feet is required. And it'll be approximately half a mile from the nearest right-of-way where 190 feet is required. So it meets all the setbacks. Here's an image of the site of the proposed site plan. So it'll be a new access easement located here where this, the drive or a driveway will be permitted or built. This is where the turnaround is, and then this is the lease area for the property with, and then again, here's a close-up of the lease area for the cell tower, and then the equipment, pads here to the left and right. And then here is a rendering of the tower. So again, the tower is 190 feet with lightning rod, again, adding another 5 feet to the top. Here's a view looking northwest from the property without the tower, and then the view with the tower from that same view. And then again, this one is looking from Risk Canyon Road, looking north towards the tower, again, with no tower in the site. And then here it is with the tower built. Referral agency comments. So the application was sent to multiple referral agencies for review. Comments were received from the following agencies. Referral agencies had no concerns with the proposal. Conditions of approval are included to require access road meet Larimer County rural access standards and access requirements from Poudre Fire as well. And no comments were received from Larimer County right-of-way permitting and the Risk Canyon Volunteer Fire Department. Neighbor notices at the time were sent to 10 property owners, and I received no written comments of, in favor or against, but neighbors did show up to the scheduled planning commission hearings and voice their concerns and issues. The review criteria is outlined here. It's outlined in more detail in my staff report. So if anyone in the public or the commission members have more questions on that, we can go over that. But here's the basic review criteria, and then there's also additional items in the wireless communications facilities in Article 9 of our land use code. Those primarily deal with design and standards like that and setbacks and things. So those have been reviewed as well. So Planning Commission added a condition as well. So the August 21st Planning Commission hearing, they voted 9-0 to recommend approval with an additional condition to that the applicant needed to provide. So they wanted them to provide the minimum height requirement for maximum coverage from a carrier and allowing an extra 30 feet plus 5 feet for a lightning rod with a height not to exceed 150 feet, unless the study provided by the applicant shows that it's feasible to have a shorter tower, in which case that should be the maximum height. And part of this language, which the applicant again can explain in a little more detail now, but at the time, they didn't have a carrier in mind, so they didn't work with, say, Verizon, say, oh, we need a 120-foot tall tower in this area. So they were almost designing it on spec, I would say. And so this was where, in the Planning Commission meeting, it was an example of, say, that Verizon needed a 110-foot tall tower, then the maximum height could be additional 30 feet, making it 140 feet plus the 5 feet for the lightning rod. And so if there's any more questions on that language, I know it's a little confusing, not the most straightforward, but that was the intent because, again, there wasn't a known carrier and what known height would needed. It is the assessment of the development service team that this request meets the special review criteria provided that the applicant satisfies the recommended additions of approval in the staff report. And the motion to have up here is excluding the additional condition that the Planning Commission recommended, because I just wasn't sure if the commissioners were going to keep that condition or modify or anything like that. So I wanted to wait and see until you guys actually made your motion, had a longer other discussion about it. And then also with the information about the applicant requesting the original 190-foot tower height, could change, this motion and the conditions and provided. And then I also want to mention one more thing, sorry, that staff wasn't recommending approval or denial of that Planning Commission additional condition. And so as we're leaving up to the commissioners to make their, best decision how they see fit. And then with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to help answer any of those.
Thank you, Justin. Looks like Commissioner Shannock McNally has a question.
Thank you, Justin. A few questions, if I might, Madam Chair, if I can just go through. Thank you. So my first one, just want to confirm, because this is, 190, but it was supposed to be 120, and I'm wondering about the lighting, and there was, what is the FAA requirements, and also what kind of lighting, because, I'm really worried about wildlife and bird migrations and dark sky, because, people live up there for dark sky. So I'm wondering those two questions around that first.
For the lighting, not needed, I'll let the applicant go into more detail about that one. But we do, I've recently updated our lighting standards and let them meet those when they submit. If it is approved and they submit for a building permit, those will be followed. And then there was a letter from the FFA from the original application saying, essentially no issues or concerns at this point. There's no interference with flight patterns and things like that.
But that original one was with that, and that's the reason for my question. They asked for a higher height, or the different changes in the height. Does that change the letter and the conditions? With the FAA?
We didn't get anything on that, and since when they requested a change, it was one a lower height, but also I think the FFA letter is just saying if there's no conflicts with flight patterns, I don't know that I don't believe the height. I mean, it would make a difference, but there's no flight patterns. Are not really the height of the tower is, I guess, less of a concern.
Okay.
If there's no issues with the flight patterns.
And, but I'm also wondering, because we've had wildfires in there and at night or during the day, if the tower is there and maybe a helicopter, rescue helicopter with smoke or something doesn't see that. I'm just curious if, that's why I'm wondering if it had to have any kind of signal on it or something.
It wasn't outlined in the FFA letter, the additional requirements.
Okay, thank you. And then could you go back and maybe expand and clarify about, you said up to 4 units, but then I'm also looking at the Article 9 with the B, with the co-location. Can you help me understand what you said here about having 4, that they were going to have 4 cell carriers possibly, but then I'm also wondering about, it said here, to accommodate at least 2 wire service providers. So is there a minimum, maximum, or what? Can you kind of expand on that and help me understand that a little more clearly?
I may need a minute to review some of the code and read that exact language, but I believe I want to double check, maybe confirm with staff, but I believe the intent is that there's a minimum of 2. And then after we have a maximum on there, I have to review that code though, just to better clarify it.
I just don't see a maximum. I'm just wondering about the minimum. And so, but I did wonder if there was a maximum at all, but I don't see one, and I'm just curious about that. And so,
I don't believe there is a max. I mean, I think these towers are designed for, a limited amount of sales carriers. I don't know if we have a maximum is on there in the land use code. Has been a concern, I suppose.
okay. And there, I just want to clarify from what I read and make sure I understood, it's not really required to be concealed, so they'll just use a topography and natural tree growth, but from the pictures, it seems like it's fairly above the tree line, so there will be no extra camouflage or something.
For towers this tall, the code does not require them to be concealed. And from my understanding, I was speaking with other staff when these codes were updated, and it was just, once it gets to a certain height, either designed like a pine tree would kind of almost be just as, stick out as much of a 190-foot tall pine tree versus it's like, hey, this is a cell tower, this is call it what it is. And,
Yeah, okay.
so I think that's, the reason behind that. It can be, that can be an added condition if the commissioners feel that's appropriate, but it's not required at this height to start off as a concealed tower.
Yeah, I don't think, we're not in the redwood forest, we don't
Yeah.
have 190-foot trees, but, who knows? I know there was a 600-year-old tree up the Purdue Canyon. It's not there anymore, but okay. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Cafalis, any questions right now?
Yes, please.
Okay, please go ahead.
So I just would like to better understand that in one of the review criteria in the beginning of the packet, the cell tower is designed. There's a statement: the cell tower is designed to blend with existing trees on the site to minimize visual impacts while providing adequate cell service to the area. And then later on, of course, we've already had a conversation about the cell tower is not required to be concealed and will use the topography and natural tree growth, etc. In looking at the photographs, I'm not seeing how, I mean, it's still pretty visible, although from a distance it's really small. But can you say anything more about that, Justin? I guess the way it's written, it suggests that there's mature trees that will hide maybe the base of the cell tower, but there's not much that can hide a 190-foot tall tower. Can you?
Correct. I think that it could have been clearer, but I think that the intent of that first statement you meant was that the surrounding, like the fence and the equipment on the bottom and the base of it would have been more concealed and kind of either from neighboring properties or rights of way or access. So I think that's the intent. So I apologize, I wasn't clear about that, not the whole tower, but yeah.
I just have a few more questions, if that's all right, folks, colleagues. Thank you, Justin. So the next question I have is, well, regarding the the condition of approval that was discussed that the Planning Commission suggested, I think August 21 of 2024. Thank you. I don't see that in the 7 conditions of approval that are before us. And yet, one of the suggestions is that we may want to remove that condition of approval. Can you please clarify that, sir?
I would say, I guess at the time of when I drafted the first staff report and those 7 conditions, that was prior to the hearing. And then I believe this is policy that if a condition is added, it's not then retroactively added to the staff report from the Planning Commission. I included in the BCC memo that was added on there. And I would say, and I'd maybe lean on our attorneys to see how, when conditions are recommended at the Planning Commission, how that's, I guess, documented or made of, yeah.
What page is that in the packet?
I'd have to look. It was, give me a minute, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm not going anywhere at the moment.
That is in the condition is in the memo on page 2 of the packet. At the
in the
bottom
memo.
of page 2.
In the memo, yeah. Give me a moment, colleagues. Excuse me, my other 2 questions are, in the conditions of approval that are listed on, beginning on page 12 of the packet, the second one says, this application is approved without the requirement for a development agreement. What does that mean?
There are instances where some special reviews, depending on the type of use it is, a development agreement may be required. Typically, we see them in our land division applications, and that's just whoever, the developer is responsible for X, Y, and Z, or who's responsible for what and for when. But in this case, this special review for a cell tower would not require a development agreement.
And if I might add, Commissioner, typically development agreements are required when there are public improvements being constructed and the need to collect collateral to, guarantee the cost of those improvements, or if there are other, specific requirements that affect the public interest that we need to enter into an agreement about.
Thank you, colleagues. That's helpful. My last question, and that is regarding the distances with from the proposed tower to nearest residences. I wrote down 455 to 918 feet. Are these, so the parcel where this proposed tower may be located is on a 40-acre parcel, and I assume the relationship between the landowners and the cell tower company is they'll be leasing that land. Maybe you could explain that relationship, but then also those distances, are those distances structures that are on adjacent properties? Because there is a house, folks live in that house on the property, and then there's a small cabin or a hunter's cabin that's also on another structure on the property.
That's correct. Yeah. So the property owner the cell tower company or the tower company is proposing to lease this property from the property owner. So they don't own the land; they're just leasing a portion of it. And if you have more questions, obviously the applicant's here, and they can go into more detail if needed. And then the distance, I believe the ones that are in my staff report, I believe those are from, the rough site plan layout that the applicant provided. I think those are to the property lines. I'd have to double check the distance from the proposed location to the existing structure, and I can do that.
And I would assume that the applicant can provide
Yeah, they can probably give some more
greater
information as
clarity
well
on
too.
that. Great. Thank you kindly, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just have one question, Justin. So the view, when you showed the view from those different locations of what the tower looked like, was that with the 190 feet?
Yes, this is from
Okay.
the original
190.
proposed 190-foot tall tower.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to double check that. That's all I have. All right. So we'll ask the applicant to come up. The applicant.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. So, good evening. We'll ask you to introduce yourself, and you'll have 10 minutes to speak. And you may add in some of the answers to some of the questions that you've already heard.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Tom Wilkerson, and I'm with TEP. We are, as we'd stated, we are proposing the 190-foot telecommunication tower at 520 Isaac Lane.
Is it going? Try to get. Oh.
Let's see.
We can stop the time if we're having some technical difficulties. Thank you.
If that won't work, I can change the pages for you. So I plugged in the thing and it's not working. So
No worries.
sorry about that.
That's okay.
We'll just continue.
Okay, so on the next slide, we'll be going over the site plans, the tower elevation, the photo sims, and the service coverage. We are proposing this tower to serve the community by providing improved communication. We are increasing the coverage to the areas that would otherwise have none. And we are doing so to provide a source for other carriers as well to co-locate onto that tower to provide further service. So as previously stated, the tower is being proposed near Stove Prairie Road and Wrist Canyon Road. Next slide. There's a general overview where we are showing our access easement to get onto the tower. There's just another overview of the tower and the easement or the access area to get to the tower. Here is our elevation of the tower. Like I said, we are proposing a 190-foot tower with a 5-foot lightning rod. This height would allow for 4 carriers to co-locate successfully, and previously we had not had an anchor carrier, and we have our first anchor carrier, which is T-Mobile. And I have, I believe on the next slide, so here I guess are our photo sims again, the before and after from the northeast here. And here is their coverage analysis. As you can see, with the tower over at Buckhorn, there is service over in that area, but there is no service in the area of the proposed tower. But after we do co-locate, or after we do install that tower, and T-Mobile does co-locate onto it, you can see in the after photo what the coverage would look like. The green is premier service, and the yellow is partial service. And thank you for your time. We also want to add that we are just proposing the tower, and we're not proposing to add any utilities at this moment. All utilities will be brought through via the carriers.
Okay. Thank you. You said your name's Tom, right? Tom Wilkerson. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
I imagine the commissioners might have some questions for you before you leave. Do you want? Go ahead, Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for being here. Can you, that last statement you said, can you expand on that a little bit about you're not bringing utilities, however, and the carriers might? And I'm wondering, what does that mean? And is that, and I'll have to ask staff, do we need to have that spelled out of might and might come in the future? What does that mean? Can you expand on that, please?
Sure. So we are just proposing to install the tower. No power or anything. We are looking to the carriers are going to be the ones responsible for bringing all particular utilities on board.
And what does that entail? What does that look like, bringing other utilities on board? Is that power lines, cable? What does that look like?
So that would be power running underground to the tower, and whatever other means they need, such as power, fiber, or anything like that.
Okay, and that's something that I guess I'll ask staff about that. So would all four carriers do that separately?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Cafalas, do you have questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues. Thank you, Tom. Let's see. Can you explain the process for deciding about locating such a tower, such an investment, financial and otherwise, when it sounds like what you had stated, there wasn't, at the time when this was being proposed, there wasn't necessarily an anchor carrier, and now it looks like T-Mobile will serve that purpose. So I'm trying to understand, what is the incentive for considering to build such a tower? I would think the need is there in terms of public safety, but if you don't have folks lined up or companies, carriers that can co-locate, eventually have the four carriers on there, what's the incentive to do it, ahead of time? If that makes sense, I hope it makes sense. The question.
I believe so. We're just looking to add service and add that for public safety, and we want it to be available for all carriers to provide that, since there is no sort of service in that area. It is it's just in that particular area. As if you can go back to the service coverage.
Thank you, sir.
So right now, that blue dot right in the center,
Yeah.
that is where our proposed tower is located, or that is where we are proposing to install the new tower. There is no service around that area, so any sort of communication in that area is not feasible at the moment.
Yeah, let's keep this image up. Thank you. Just a little bit more. I believe you stated, or perhaps our planner stated, that the nearest, and maybe it was you, Tom, the nearest cell tower is in the Buckhorn Canyon, and in terms of its coverage, it doesn't reach this area of Stove Prairie and Risk Canyon Road.
Correct.
That cell tower that's located in Buckhorn Canyon, is it similar in terms of design standards and height as the one that's being proposed? Because I would imagine these things have to be tall, because you have a lot of mountains.
Correct.
And so do you know, what does the Buckhorn Canyon one, is it similar in terms of the height and the design?
It is similar in design. The reason for, or part of the reason for the height of our tower is so that we can, so that our microwaves, when they are installed, can point to point to that Buckhorn tower. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to have that connection between the two towers.
Thank you. Perhaps one last question, and that is, has been stated in the report, and I think in some of the discussion, that's a high wildfire risk area up there. And I know that I understand that one of the referral agencies is the Larimer County Emergency Services, that respond to wildfires and all of that. Did your company consult with them in addition to the coverage analysis to determine their take on the need for this improved coverage as far as public safety is concerned?
That was something that
Okay.
I guess this was just an approval that we went through with fire, and yeah, we don't.
Well, and just to give you a little back up there, I mean, they are one of the referral agencies, and they did respond, and they did indicate that this would improve public safety.
That sounds right. I'd have to review the comments for sure, but yeah, that sounds, what they stated.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
I think I'm good for now, Madam Chair.
Okay. One of the questions that I think maybe was asked, there was no additional FAA guidelines that you were aware of with the change in height of the tower.
That's correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure we got everything. And your anchor carrier, you said T-Mobile, they need that height. So there was obviously, when the Planning Commission looked at it, they were saying, a lower height if possible. But in your talks with T-Mobile, they did want that tower to be the 190 feet.
They do want the 190 feet. Yeah, those maps right there are based on the rad center of the antennas being at 186 feet. So that extra 4 feet for the top of the antennas is the 190 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
That's all I have. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
And thanks, thank you, Madam Chair. And just to follow up on that, the logical conclusion is that doing the coverage analysis with T-Mobile and working with your company, they determined that a 150-foot tower would not be sufficient to provide this level of coverage. Is that correct, sir?
The 150 feet does not provide that level of coverage. Yes. And then it also does not allow for, or it is not conducive to other carriers to co-locate onto the tower.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your presentation, and we'll let you sit down, and we'll see if there's some public comment. And then you can come back if there's public comment to see if you want to rebut anything that you've heard.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will ask for public comment. Is there anyone in the public? All right. Please come forward, sir, and we'll have you state your name, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Joseph Dvorak. I'm the immediate landowner to the immediate east of the property with the proposed tower location. I own 120 acres. I was one of the 10 postcards that were mailed out. I do appreciate better communication with the cell phone tower. I am concerned about the height at 190 feet. Essentially, that's the maximum height before a 200-foot tower requires additional illumination for FAA guidelines. I'm also disappointed, again, from 14 months ago, the last time I was speaking, when the proposed tower was a maximum of 150 feet, and the carrier was to provide coverage maps showing the sensitivity of the height of the tower to various degrees of coverage. Again, this is a very rural, mountainous area. There are 10 homeowners that were sent those postcards. Most parcels are between 10 or, in my case, 120 acres. The main benefit for improved cell phone coverage would be for Stove Prairie Elementary School and the parents and teachers there, or for events that are housed at Stove Prairie Ranch when they have weddings or other activities on their location. Some of the things you don't get just looking at the pictures, the base of the proposed tower is already 400 feet in elevation above the location of Stove Prairie School or Stove Prairie Ranch. So the height of the tower is not really critical. The 190-foot tower does provide microwave backhaul to the towers that are on top of Buckhorn Mountain, not in the Buckhorn Canyon, but the existing communication structures that are up there are and fit with all the other communication equipment up there. So in the land use code, this is a very visible tower, so that's why a special review is required. The land use code provides for minimizing the appearance and effects. Also, I'm trying to remember the right section here, 9.4 4.3. I've got the wrong section. One of the requirements in the land use code is to minimize the height of the tower. And again, the application today is gone from less than 150 feet back to 190 feet, and they haven't discussed what are the trade-offs. How effective would a 100-foot tower be? We have coverage maps for a new tower, but we don't have coverage maps at 80 feet, at 100 feet. So that's data that I would like to see from the application. Again, in August of 2024, when there was going to be a couple weeks before the proposal was sent before the Board of County Commissioners, the applicant were ready to provide that, but we still don't have that in 14 months later. So those are my concerns on the height of the tower. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate that. There's no one else in the room, so Ryan, can we go online and see if there's anyone who would like to give comment online?
Yeah, if there are any members of the public online who would like to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand function or *9 now. We have no hands raised.
Thank you. Thank you for checking. All right. I will have the applicant come back up, and maybe if you want to address anything you heard from Mr. Dvorak.
Hi, thank you for listening. I am from talks with T-Mobile. They are recently on board with our project, and they are working on providing their RF coverage maps for different heights. But what they have given us was this current map with their prediction of what their coverage will be at that elevation currently, and that is what they have stated to us as being their maximum, or as being what they need for their height. So.
Anything else to add?
And I have nothing else to add.
Okay. So you said that they were going to provide those the coverage maps, but they haven't yet. It would be interesting. It would have been more interesting to see those now than it would be to see them later, because if the coverage map was similar and was 20 or 30 or 40 feet smaller, that could, affect, our decision of what height to make the tower. So thank you, Tom. We'll call you back up unless you have questions of him now. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, sir. I think one of the comments made by the neighbor, I think it was Joseph. Is that right, Joseph? Was that here we are 14 months later, and there was discussion, perhaps at the Planning Commission hearings, about providing coverage maps in relation to different heights, and yet, as was mentioned, we don't have those. I wonder. Don't mean to be putting all this on you, but is there any explanation from the carrier? I don't know when they came on board as an anchor carrier, but is there any explanation why something that was agreed to, I believe it was agreed to, we haven't, the planning folks and us, we haven't received that information?
They are a very recent anchor carrier, so they are still kind of working on providing more, but they were able to give us that was what they require for their height. So, thank you.
Questions for the applicant?
Not for the applicant. I wanted to ask staff a question, but maybe the applicant will have to follow up after I ask the.
Okay, Tom. Well, we'll have you take a seat for now, and we'll ask questions of staff, and we may call you back up if we have additional questions.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So, Madam Chair, would it be okay? Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure who would answer this question, so I'll just throw it out there to staff. I have a couple. Well, first question I have is it talks about that they're not requiring cable, but now it says that the carriers have to bring the power, and it's power lines, and it sounds like it's buried, and but they each have to do it separately. And so, to me, there's an easement road, and I start thinking about that. That sounds like disruption for, it's on their 40 acres, but still, it's more disruption. And what is the guidelines, or what's the guardrails for bringing this power to these 4 different separate times for power coming up to this tower, and it could be even though that access road's on the property, it's still a shared kind of access road. And I'm just curious, is there guardrails here, or rules or regulations around that power and getting whether it's boring or whatever? What does that look like, and how does that fit into the code for these? Because obviously, I thought it happened simultaneously, but it sounds like this is a whole other separate process, and I didn't know what was our process, or is that just kind of it's done, just kind of go? So curious about that.
With regards to the utilities being brought in for power for the tower, so that's not part of this this review. And if it is approved and they submit for a building permit, they need to show where that stuff is. But then the county doesn't inspect those utilities because they're not ours. And it's outside of our purview in the building code. And so that's something that we rely on the providers themselves, being the utilities, to inspect that and work with the applicant on how and when that's installed. So I guess it'd be similar if they were building a single family home, we don't review the electricity or where the utility is going to be if it's just for on-site service. It's we don't review that, and then when they go out for inspections, that's something that the utility is responsible for to make sure it's installed correctly to their specs.
Okay, so but it's still, if they're bringing power up the road, and then is it up the easement road? I know it's on that person's private property, but it still seems like it's going to be done 4 separate times potentially. That just sounds like a lot of disruption to me, and I'm just wondering what that's just kind of something completely separate. So I'm just curious about that, because that sounds like a lot of disruption to me.
Correct. So if they are bringing utilities up through a county road, that'd be something they'd have to go through our engineering department to get access to the county road or an access permit, something like that. And engineering can add more detail if needed. But when it's a private easement on private property that's not, I guess, doesn't involve the county, it's not our road or our easement, we kind of it's a matter between I guess two private parties.
I see Christine wants to answer that. I can see her. She's jumping at it. But anyone who wants to answer, it just sounds to me, it's like, oh, well, it's going to be done again and again and again. I'm just wondering what does that look like? And maybe, they have an adjacent neighbor that just don't know, a lot of trucks, a lot of noise. I don't know what that entails.
Yeah, so from the engineering department, of course, we'd expect that all the work is being completed within an easement. If they needed to go outside of that, they'd have to acquire a new easement as to where they were going to run their lines. For a private road, I'm sure this is what Christine was about to say, we don't have the jurisdiction to enforce that. So any disruption to the road and repairs needed would be a civil matter between the two parties. So that's kind of out of our jurisdiction to enforce that they go repair the road to a certain standard when they come through and bring those utilities through.
That's right, Commissioner. This is Christine Luckison from the County Attorney's Office. Just like Connor said, we don't have the ability to kind of referee that private contract. I will say it's the guardrails that are in place are what is within that easement contract. So there are duties implied in easements. We just can't referee it because it's a private contract. But as far as protecting them from construction noise, if it's something that the parties have agreed to, it's just outside of the scope of this application.
Okay, that's helpful. If I might, Madam Chair. I'm curious. It was 120 when it started, or 150?
It started as 190 with the first application, and then at that August 21st, 2024 Planning Commission hearing, the applicant at the time mentioned that there was a cable fiber, I believe, that was installed either recently or adjacent or on the property that could then help reduce the maximum height needed to reach some other towers in the area that they mentioned. So like I said, since then, after a conversation this morning with the applicant, they're no longer pursuing, or they're no longer going to connect to the cable, from my understanding. And obviously, the applicant can explain more as far as why that is or what the reason behind that. And we'll note too that the original application that 14 months ago, it was a different staff member with TEP, and so that's, there was, different conversations and different presentations by a different employee, but to help, again, provide some more context.
And when we don't, do we require maps at any time to kind of explain the coverage to give, I want to say explanation for the height of versus 120 versus 150, just to try to, is there a kind of an analysis or study that's required to show why that height's needed? Because right now it sounds like they just say that this is the height we need and this is what it will do, but they haven't, it sounds like they haven't got the maps for what other heights would
Right.
do.
So the application requirements don't specifically outline that, we need to see a coverage map at 80, 100, 120, there's nothing in there. We rely on the applicants to provide the necessary information. And that could include additional coverage maps, but again, that's not something that's specifically outlined. And historically, some of the maps, the other projects I've had with cell towers, they've just shown the one coverage map for the height they're requesting.
Okay.
Commissioner, if I may just make an addition to, there is a set of criteria in the code that you all need to find compliance with, and one of those criteria say that the tower should be the maximum size needed to obtain coverage objectives while maintaining compatibility with the context and character of the surrounding area. Height or size of the proposed alternative tower structure should be minimized as much as possible. So the code does envision that there may be a tension or a balance point between height and coverage, and coverage maps can help assess that. Staff's analysis was that this case met that criterion, but you all as decision makers can interpret and make findings related to that criteria as well.
Thank you, Rebecca, if I might, Madam Chair. I appreciate you reading that, and I had read that, and that's why it was, for me, trying to understand where that balance point was, because even though it states that, we don't have that information to understand what the maximum, this is obviously the maximum, they say, plus another 5 feet for the lightning, but also, we don't know what the minimum is, right? So so it's hard to know for me, and that's why I was asking, was there some other, things in there that I didn't see that would try to say, well, here's the minimum, but really this is the maximum. This would provide the I think he used premium coverage, and so that's why I'm struggling with that. So the code it almost seems to imply to lean towards the maximum coverage, or the if you're going to build a tower, but for it to be a height to provide as much coverage as possible. Am I interpreting that right, or is it something a little more complex?
Well, the code says it should be the maximum size needed to obtain coverage objectives. So, coverage objectives is not defined explicitly in the code. I think it depends on what the context is, the area that needs to be served. I think the taller the tower, the wider the area that can be covered, generally speaking, but topography influences it too. There are other considerations, and those are probably questions that the applicant might be able to weigh in on from a technical perspective.
Well, and there's also that 200 feet for the FAA that also is the other. So so now that's the reason for my question is kind of like, is it trying to wiggle in the little notch there? So that's one reason for my question. So I think that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to ask any of your questions to the applicant?
If the applicant would like to expand maybe on is it just, could you explain, is this just the carrier says they need 190 feet to reach other towers or to show that coverage area, but did they have any indication of what was a minimum size?
So that 190 feet is being requested in as a way to bring on further co-locators. The lowest set of antennas needs to be able to clear tree line, and we want to be able to provide space for multiple carriers as to reduce, or I guess avoid building more towers, because we can just co-locate. If we can co-locate all of our providers onto a single tower, then we won't have to go back and provide new towers elsewhere in the area. So as far as that 190 feet goes, that is the requirement for one carrier, and then to in order to leave enough room for future carriers to co-locate onto the tower.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions before we move into deliberation? Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, I do. Thank you, staff. Do we know why, if I heard correctly, at this height, proposed height of 190 feet plus the 5 feet for the lightning rod, the decision was made that they wouldn't need to hook up with a fiber optic line. But I thought I understood that if they did do the if they did hook up to that, then maybe it wouldn't have to be as high. So I'm a little bit confused about that.
Yeah, that's
Should we ask
my,
the applicant to come up?
yeah, I was gonna say, that's probably better understood from the applicant. I have a high level understanding
Oh, okay.
what happened, but they'd better to answer that.
All right, Tom,
That's the
we're going to have you
reasons
come up one more time and explain this connecting to the cable situation and why that changed the height.
So we are no longer looking to use that fiber line, and because of that, we do need a microwave on the tower in order to communicate with the Buckhorn Tower, and that needs to be able to clear the line of the tree line.
May I do a follow up?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Are you suggesting that? I mean, earlier you made a comment about one of the reasons to justify the height is to be able to bring on multiple carriers. Does that imply that a 150-foot cell tower would not allow co-location?
That would be prohibitive of future co-locators. Yeah.
Why?
They need a certain height above the tree line to be able to provide that coverage. If we build for 4 carriers, that lowest carrier does need to be able to clear tree line.
But the design of the tower, isn't it where it's up high and that you have those little, whatever those, aren't they all just kind of wrapped around the upper part of the tower? I'm not understanding about the height. If we don't have enough height, then some of those carriers are going to hook up down below, and then they won't get to cover. I don't get that. I don't understand.
So they need a 10-foot increments between each of the antennas to be able to or they need that kind of separation between each other. So
Okay.
Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
This is for the applicant. So some things are starting to connect for me here. Until recently, the last year, to go for certain funding through the federal government to provide internet into rural areas. You had to really go for fiber to the premise, and it wasn't, it was really favored towards connecting to fiber. And now that has been all changed, and now private companies can go for this federal money. And now they say point to point and microwave service off of mountaintops is allowed, and it was, and when before that wasn't considered 100% coverage. So is this also part of the change in the application, is because not only for cell service, but you're also looking to do point to point internet service with the new regulations and the new opportunities for private companies to go for federal BEAD money? I'm just curious if that's the reason for the change and not going for the fiber.
As far as the reason for the change goes, it's not necessarily it's it's per the carrier, and if they do decide themselves to do fiber, then they themselves can make that change.
Well, let me reword my question, if I might, Madam Chair.
I just want to make sure we're sticking with the purview of what the
Well, this
criteria is, and I'm looking at Christine to.
Well, this is also something can go off the top of the tower if they're having four. This could be point to point internet service as well as cell service. And so I'm curious, that's my next question is that changing? Is this just for cell service, or now that you're doing, because microwave cell service, which is how I get some of my internet, is off of towers like this on top of mountains. So is this also changing not only for cell service, but for microwave point to point internet service?
Oh, no, this is just for the cell service.
Okay, that's all. That's what I was looking for.
Gotcha.
So thank you.
Of course.
Okay. Anything else for the applicant before we? No. Okay. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you.
We'll have you sit down.
A couple more questions for those.
Yeah,
folks.
please go ahead.
Yeah, so
I think he wanted to ask staff, so that's all right. Thank you,
this
Tom.
is, appropriate for staff, and that is, what are our options here? It seems to me, based on the 9.4.3, item number 4 that you cited earlier, it seems like we don't have all the information we need to make an informed decision. So I guess I'm asking, I suppose one option could be to keep the planning commission condition of approval in 150 feet unless the coverage maps are provided and it can be justified that it has to be 190 feet. Or we approve something that is 190 feet as requested, with a condition of approval that requests, the additional information to justify that. There you go.
A third option that you have available as well is to table the item to request additional information, or to establish I guess the fourth option then is to, establish a different height limit or any other conditions of approval that you feel might be appropriate.
Are we ready to go into deliberation, or are there further questions?
I guess I'm kind of aligning with Commissioner Cafalis here. I have some questions and concerns, so I'm wondering about, do we ask the applicant if they're willing to come back with, if we pause and ask for, I spell out the three options.
I think you're wanting, if we table for more coverage maps, to get the additional coverage maps to see what kind of coverage you would get with a lower feet. That's an option we can do. Or we could say that it can't be above a certain amount of feet.
Yeah,
Although it's clear from the applicant that they feel like that wouldn't cover tree line and that would give no coverage, so I don't know.
I'm inclined to support that option of the three that we've discussed, and that is, with all due respect, to table this. We may need to come up with a specific date, and it might be a matter of asking the applicant what's a reasonable time frame. But I feel like there's a part of me, I can't make an informed decision unless I could look at the coverage maps, or we can discuss the coverage maps and the different heights, and ultimately, if it confirms what is being suggested, then that will help inform our decision. So I'm inclined to table this item.
Go ahead,
With a
Commissioner.
request to ask for the coverage maps.
Well, and I understand that. I also know sounds like this application's been a long time in process. So I'm also curious, does that condition proposed by the Planning Commission kind of says showing study or showing the maps to justify the height? Otherwise, it was the 150, but it only could go up to 30 more. I mean, I don't remember the details, but would that allow for kind of bringing it a little bit shorter down? I'm curious because they obviously there's Planning Commission had some of the same thoughts that we're having, so they came up with this proposed condition. So I'm curious what staff's you said you didn't have recommendation, but is there any guidance there from our county attorney or from all of you about would this meet or would, I mean, just curious.
Sure. So that's a good question, Commissioner. So regarding the recommended condition, it's just like Rebecca said. So the options are you can adopt that condition if you can tie it to a criteria, if you agree that the criteria supports adopting that planning commission condition regarding the height. You can craft a different criteria if you feel like, or a condition if you feel like it fits into the criteria, if you're concerned about the heights in proportion to the coverage, or you can table the item to get more maps. I don't know, and I don't know if Rebecca, if you have a recommendation about how a condition could be drafted that a map could somehow trigger. It's difficult for this one because, as I understand, there's no technical review stage here, so it goes straight to building permit. So that's the part I'm a little bit concerned about, and we would probably need a little bit more time to draft a condition that matches your concerns if you wanted to do it that way.
Well, my concern with the condition would be of just picking an arbitrary height is we don't even have enough information to pick an arbitrary height. It would be arbitrary. And so my fear is that there is a safety element here with these cell towers, right? There is a safety element with not having coverage in these certain areas, and these are areas that are fire prone too. And so it's coverage both for the people that live there and go to school there and maybe have a wedding there, but it's also coverage for people in our area who are fighting fires there. So I would be more comfortable with tabling this item and getting more information, because I don't want to pick a height and let's say 150 feet that isn't feasible, and that I picked it because I needed to make a decision tonight. I would rather say have more information, because if in fact the only way to do this is to have 190 feet and to get the kind of coverage that we need, I might be inclined to support something like that. So that would be my thing. I would rather not just pick a height or use the conditions that were previously said, because now that there's an anchor carrier, there's more defined information about what's needed, and so that's my inclination.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think you framed the matter well. On the one hand, we want to make sure that, there are public safety issues up there, and we want to make sure there's adequate cell coverage and all of that. But I think tabling this would be the appropriate course of action, and I'm wondering if it's appropriate to ask the applicant to come up at some point and say, if we're to table this, we certainly don't want to wait 14 months, but we want to. What is a realistic time frame in order to go back to T-Mobile and ask for when those coverage maps could be available? Is that
I think that's fine, and we're going to ask Tom to come up one more time and see if he has an answer for that.
And commissioners, while the applicant is making his way up, I'll just give you your options for tabling. You can either table the item to a date certain, which would serve as public notice for that date right now, or you can table the item indefinitely without a set date, which would require new public notice the next time it comes up for a hearing. So you do have those two options.
I would first like to ask that we get a conditional approval for the 190 feet, showing with the grounds of us showing that the coverage at that 150 foot base would not be, or any carriers below the 150 foot base would not suffice as far as coverage for their carrier goes. Right now, at 190 feet, we can get all 4 carriers on there, no problem. But unfortunately, anything below the 150 foot range, there wouldn't be enough height to clear everything, and we would be stuck with a carrier maybe. But I do want to put that out there.
Well, I mean, if they need 10 feet between them, and we could still get, I mean, our requirement for the county is 2 carriers at least, right? So, I mean, a lower amount, I mean, a shorter height, I mean, could maybe still carry 2 or 3. I guess I don't the covering the tree line piece, that's another thing, but we don't. It would have just been nice to have those maps. Is all I'm saying. The coverage maps would have been
So if I may,
valuable
Madam Chair.
information. Please go ahead.
So what is currently on the table is perhaps tabling this item. And my reason, ask for you to come up was to say if we go down that path, how much time do you all need to come up with the coverage maps that can justify 190 feet or 180 feet or whatever it is? I'm a little confused now. What is the best height for 4 carriers, optimal coverage? So how much time do you think you folks need to come up with those coverage maps, especially if they had been suggested 14 months ago? They should be kind of ready and waiting to justify what you're asking.
Right. We would ask 2 months.
2 months?
Okay, we will ask staff to go out 2 months and see what date that would bring us to.
It would probably put us into January. Our last December hearing date is December 15th. And then our first January hearing date is January 12th. I'm looking at Ryan just to make sure I got those dates right.
January 12th. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Commissioner.
As long as staff's okay with that, I just want to make sure, like you said, you had to publicly notice that we just pick that date. Okay.
So if you choose a specific date today, then additional public notice wouldn't need to be sent. This conversation here would serve as the public notice for that date. If there's a desire to resend, mailed notice to the neighbors, we can still provide that or do something like that. But doing the legal notice in the paper and some of the other notice requirements wouldn't be triggered if you pick a specific date tonight.
And I sorry if I may.
No, yeah. Please respond. Yeah.
I think that we would actually be okay to do the next available, so November or December, whichever those is.
What was the date then in December? December 15th?
December 15th.
All right.
Can we put this in there?
I'm just curious, is that agenda full? I don't want to cram, make it a full night.
I'll look and see. It hasn't been set yet. There are both a 3:00 hearing and a 6:30 hearing that day, so there should be room on One of those hearings, we would need to specify which hearing, the 3 o'clock or the 6:30 hearing that you would like to put this on.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Commissioner. You have thoughts?
based on the conversation and the latest comments from the applicant, I would support December 15th. And I would think that I'm not seeing why we couldn't put this on the afternoon hearing time.
I think that would work.
And I imagine the motion to table it, if we agree to table it to that date, would also have to be specific about the information that we're requesting, or how does that work?
I think it's probably helpful to the applicant to set a clear expectation of what you hope to see on that date.
Okay. All right, we ready? All right, Commissioner Shannon McNally, I'll have you make that motion.
Madam Chair, I move to, I'm sorry, which date, which time? We said 3 o'clock?
I think we said the 3 o'clock,
Okay.
yes.
I just want to confirm. Madam Chair, I move that we table item 20, is this 23-FC WCF 0107, a new solar tower at 520 Isaac Lane special review, to a land use hearing on December 15th at 3 p.m. for a discussion item.
And can you state the information that we would like them to bring at that next? The coverage maps?
And at that hearing, we require more information about coverage maps at multiple tower heights for that hearing.
Yes.
And tower heights associated with coverage.
Yeah, that's why I said tower heights associated with coverage. Yes, that's what I had said.
Thank you.
That's perfect.
Yeah, great, wonderful. All right, there is a motion on the table. Any further discussion on this item?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 3-0, so that this meeting will be tabled to December 15th at 3 p.m. And that is our only item on the agenda. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.